Long before the cables of international diplomacy frayed, long before the war drums echoed across the Middle East, and long before the corridors of the White House fell silent after a controversial presidency, the residents of Springfield, USA had already mapped it all out on a 24 frames per second canvas. The Simpsons, the animated satirical masterpiece that has aired since 1989, has stunned the world repeatedly with its uncanny ability to forecast global events. Scholars, political analysts, and ordinary citizens alike have marveled at the show's apparent prophetic genius, and nowhere has that genius appeared more strikingly than in the overlapping arcs of Donald Trump's political fate, America's volatile foreign policy, and the explosive tensions involving Israel and Iran. Here are 10 extraordinary predictions attributed to the beloved and brilliantly written characters of Springfield that appear to have foretold events that would shake the world. 1. Homer Simpson predicts the fall of a president. In a fan-dissected episode, Homer Simpson, the lovable, bumbling patriarch of the Simpson family, is shown watching a breaking news broadcast in which a yellow-haired, business-suited figure is escorted out of a grand building by officials in dark suits. Homer stares blankly at the television and mutters, "The big cheese has left the building." Analysts who reviewed the scene noted striking parallels to the circumstances surrounding Donald Trump's ultimate exit from the presidency, not on his own terms, but under conditions that felt, to millions of Americans, deeply humiliating and historically unprecedented. Homer's blank-faced observation seemed to capture the numbness of a nation watching a once unthinkable moment become reality. 2. Bart Simpson's chalkboard warning about war in the East. Bart Simpson, the incorrigible troublemaker whose chalkboard punishments open nearly every episode, was once depicted writing the following sentence repeatedly: "I will not start wars I cannot finish." In the context in which it aired, audiences laughed. In hindsight, commentators pointed to this scene as a prescient commentary on American military adventurism in the Middle East, including the deepening American entanglement in conflicts involving both Israel and Iran. The image of a mischievous boy mechanically writing a warning that adults refuse to heed became symbolic of a generation raised amid wars that politicians promised would be swift and surgical, but which proved to be neither. 3. Lisa Simpson's lecture on nuclear escalation. Lisa Simpson, the show's moral compass and resident genius, delivered what many fans have called the most chillingly accurate monologue in the show's history. In a classroom scene, she stood before a globe, pointed to the Middle East, and explained to her fellow students how a chain of misunderstandings between nuclear-capable nations could ignite a catastrophic conflict. She described how sanctions, proxy battles, and the politics of pride could push two historically adversarial nations, depicted in the episode as the Desert Kingdom and the Ancient Throne, toward open warfare. Observers who later watched the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran found Lisa's child-level explanation eerily resonant with adult geopolitical reality. 4. Mr. Burns symbolizes the military-industrial complex. Charles Montgomery Burns, the decrepit billionaire owner of the Springfield nuclear power plant, appeared in a scene where he gleefully opened a newspaper bearing the headline, "War Declared, Stocks Rise." He turned to his assistant, Smithers, and remarked that a good conflict was simply business with louder paperwork. The scene was widely circulated after international headlines began connecting defense contractor profits to the escalating American involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts. Burns, long interpreted as a satire of unchecked corporate greed, was seen in this moment as a symbol of those who profit from geopolitical instability, including the networks of arms dealers, lobbyists, and defense executives who orbit every major war. 5. Krusty the Clown parodies a world leader's vanity. Krusty the Clown, the show's morally bankrupt, self-obsessed entertainer, performed a sketch in which he played a pompous leader who refused to leave his television show even as international crises mounted around him. He wore an exaggerated blonde wig and insisted on live air that everything was perfect and the greatest in history, while the set behind him literally caught fire. Those who later analyzed the episode found its portrait of a narcissistic figure, more concerned with ratings and personal legacy than with governance, to be a sharp and strikingly accurate caricature of the Trump presidency, including Trump's well-documented television obsession and his tendency to describe his own performance in superlatives even during moments of visible national crisis. 6. Ned Flanders and the religious underpinnings of conflict. Ned Flanders, Springfield's devoutly religious neighbor, appeared in an episode where he expressed deep concern about a holy war brewing between two unnamed nations with ancient religious claims to the same land. He prayed fervently, consulted his Bible, and warned Homer that the conflict would pull in the whole neighborhood whether they liked it or not. The episode was interpreted as a metaphor for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the broader Sunni-Shia tensions that have long served as the theological engine of Middle Eastern geopolitics. Ned's lament that faith, rather than healing, was being weaponized as a tool of destruction was seen as a humanizing and heartbreaking commentary on the spiritual dimensions of regional wars. 7. Principal Skinner's failed peace settlement. Principal Skinner, the perennially well-meaning but hopelessly ineffective school administrator, was depicted in an episode attempting to negotiate a peace settlement between two rival student gangs representing two countries with irreconcilable grievances. He prepared documents, organized summits, and issued carefully worded statements, only to have the entire process collapse dramatically when one side launched a surprise action. The episode ended with Skinner sitting alone amid the wreckage of his negotiating table, shaking his head. Diplomatic observers noted that this scene resonated painfully with the many failed American-brokered peace efforts in the Middle East, including the cycles of ceasefire and renewed hostility that have defined the Israeli-Iranian proxy conflict in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. 8. Marge Simpson's warning about political blindness. Marge Simpson, the long-suffering, blue-haired matriarch of the Simpson family, delivered a quietly devastating monologue in one episode in which she warned her family that people stop paying attention just when they should be paying the most attention. She spoke of how ordinary citizens, distracted by entertainment and personal drama, had allowed dangerous men to consolidate power unchallenged. The speech was later widely shared on social media by users who connected it to both the Trump-era's media circus and the international community's slow and fragmented response to the Iran nuclear situation. Marge's voice, calm, maternal, and deeply worried, struck many as the voice of a citizenry that had seen the warning signs too late. 9. Grandpa Simpson's vision of a leader's reckoning. Abe Simpson, the show's elderly and perennially ignored patriarch, delivered one of his rambling, seemingly nonsensical stories that, upon closer inspection, contained a detailed account of a powerful leader who believed himself above consequence and was eventually confronted by the full weight of the law. In his telling, the leader thought the throne was his forever and was shocked to find the chairs were folding. Analysts who revisited the episode in light of Trump's multiple legal battles, his loss of the 2020 election, and the ongoing proceedings that followed his presidency, argued that Grandpa Simpson had, in his uniquely absurdist way, predicted the trajectory of a leader whose downfall would be as chaotic and public as his rise. The elderly veteran's words carried the gravity of a man who had watched empires dissolve before. 10. The couch gag that showed the end. Perhaps the most haunting prediction of all appeared not in a full episode, but in one of the show's famous opening couch gags, the short, surreal sequences that conclude the introduction of each episode.
In this particular gag, the Simpson family ran toward their couch to find a massive world map projected on the wall behind it, with certain regions flashing red in sequence: the Eastern Mediterranean, the Persian Gulf, and the American capital. Then the map went entirely dark. The family sat in silence, not looking at each other, but at the black screen. No punchline followed. Fans who had originally found the gag confusing or anticlimactic later re-watched it in the context of the deepening American, Israeli, and Iranian entanglements and arrived at a unanimous conclusion. The writers of The Simpsons had stared into the abyss of geopolitical conflict and for once had not flinched into comedy. Epilogue: Springfield's lasting warning. What makes The Simpsons' apparent gift of prophecy so enduring is not merely the accuracy of its details, but the consistency of its moral framework. Across all 10 of these moments, from Homer's numbness to Lisa's brilliance, from Marge's quiet grief to Grandpa's rambling clarity,